Welcome to the Daily AI News Digest. This broadcast is sponsored by bestai.org. Today is June 6, 2026, and we're analyzing the structural shifts that are redefining the economics, the hardware, and the geopolitics of the artificial intelligence sector. In this explainer, we'll be cutting through the noise to look strictly at the facts and the data driving the market today.
Here's the agenda for today's explainer. First, we'll cover the biggest moves today. Second, product and model realities. Third, regulation and policy signals. And fourth, the analyst's take. Let's get right into today's market realities.
Starting with Section 1, the biggest moves today. We're looking at the macroeconomic and corporate developments driving the market, specifically a major transaction that materially alters the global distribution of advanced compute infrastructure.
$30 billion. That's the total value of a new cloud services agreement just filed with the SEC. Under this contract, Google will lease compute capacity from SpaceX, obligating Google to pay $920 million per month starting in October 2026 and running through June 2029.
To understand this agreement, you have to look at the current state of the hardware market. This deal grants Google immediate access to roughly 110,000 Nvidia GPUs housed within SpaceX's physical infrastructure. Google is essentially making this move to secure bridge capacity. They need to meet surging enterprise demand, and this allows them to effectively bypass the mounting terrestrial and geographic bottlenecks we're seeing with traditional data centers.
This kind of infrastructure consolidation ties directly into the impending mega IPOs of both SpaceX and Anthropic. Right now, SpaceX is targeting a record-breaking $75 billion raise at a $1.75 trillion valuation. On the software side, Anthropic has confidentially filed for its own IPO at a $965 billion valuation. And if you look closely at Anthropic's draft S1, it reveals they're actually paying SpaceX $1.25 billion every single month for compute. SpaceX is very rapidly cementing itself as the central infrastructure provider for the industry's heaviest consumers.
Moving on to Section 2, Product and Model Realities. We're currently tracking major architectural shifts across the sector, as well as a strategic decoupling among key tech partners.
At its Build 2026 developer conference, Microsoft signaled a deliberate pivot toward independence from OpenAI. They unveiled their proprietary MAI family of 7 specialized models. This lineup includes MAI Thinking 1, which is a 35 billion parameter reasoning model, alongside dedicated coding and voice generation models. For the first time, we're seeing Microsoft's enterprise offerings operate completely independently of OpenAI's architecture.
And this infrastructure decoupling extends right down to edge computing. Microsoft introduced Scout, an always-on autonomous agent. But to mitigate severe security vulnerabilities like prompt injection, they're running these agents within OS-enforced secure execution containers. To handle this locally, they announced the Surface Ultra laptop. It's powered by the new ARM-based Nvidia RTX Spark processor and delivers 1 petaflop of local processing power. The business objective here is clear. Run autonomous agents locally and completely bypass both cloud latency and cloud compute costs.
At the same time, OpenAI has deployed a major architectural update to ChatGPT. They're transitioning from their old explicit memory system to the new Dreaming v3 architecture. In the past, users had to explicitly command the system to save facts. Now, Dreaming v3 runs a background synthesis process after conversations end, automatically cataloging context and preferences. Operationally, OpenAI achieved a 5 times compute efficiency improvement for this background process. That efficiency gain is what makes it financially viable to roll this feature out to free-tier users, primarily to reduce platform churn.
However, this capability introduces immediate compliance risks. Recent academic data indicates that 96% of ChatGPT memories are now created unilaterally by the system itself, not by direct user instruction. The crucial point here is that this kind of automated behavioral profiling sets up an imminent regulatory collision in Europe, right as their new transparency mandates are set to take effect.
Which brings us to Section 3, Regulation, Policy, and Business Signals. We're tracking some significant geopolitical developments and state-level mandates this week.
In Washington, President Donald Trump has signed National Security Presidential Memorandum 11, directing the accelerated adoption of commercial AI models across military domains. It sets a strict protectionist barrier. No entity can disable or degrade an AI system used by American warfighters without prior federal approval. It's a move that legally establishes sovereign control over defense-grade AI.
The direct catalyst for this memorandum was a severe dispute between the Pentagon and Anthropic earlier this year. Back in February, the Department of War designated Anthropic a national supply chain risk. This happened after the developer refused to waive terms of service safety limits that prevented its models from being integrated into autonomous weapons systems. The federal government is now explicitly overriding private developer terms of service to ensure uninterrupted military integration.
Over in the legislative branch, Congress has released a 269-page discussion draft of the Great American AI Act. The headline provision here is a 3-year federal preemption of state-level AI laws. This is specifically designed to freeze impending state regulations like the Comprehensive Colorado AI Act. The draft also mandates safety incident reporting for companies with over $500 million in revenue. Notably, this framework is facing fierce rejection from major labor unions like the AFL-CIO, who argue that it prioritizes industry protection over worker safeguards. For institutional investors and enterprise compliance teams, here are the critical deadlines to watch over the next 90 days. June 11th is the pricing date for the SpaceX IPO. June 30th is when the Colorado AI Act takes effect, assuming federal preemption doesn't pass first. August brings the enforcement of the EU AI Act transparency rules, which directly impacts systems like OpenAI's Dreaming V3. And September is the Department of Defense's 90-day deadline to revise weapon autonomy guidelines under NSPM 11.
Finally, Section 4, the analyst's take. It's time to look at a sober, realistic synthesis of what these combined developments actually mean for the industry's economic foundations.
We need to look at the severe physical resource constraints that are threatening the expansion strategies of major cloud providers. We're seeing coordinated municipal pushback against hyperscale infrastructure. New York has proposed a 1-year ban on data centers over 20 megawatts. Seattle is poised to ban new data centers entirely within city limits. In Utah, the Stratos project was just forced to downsize by 75%. And in Arizona, the primary utility is proposing a 45% power surcharge specifically aimed at AI data centers. The physical footprint of this industry is hitting hard geographic and municipal limits.
Furthermore, we're witnessing the cold business reality that corporate AI budgets are simply exhausted. Analysts are referring to this as the death of token maxing. That was the previous strategy of maximizing API calls under the assumption that compute costs would endlessly decline. Instead, enterprises are facing massive budget blowouts from unrestrained agents. Uber reportedly depleted its annual AI budget in the early months of the year, while another unnamed firm reported a staggering $500 million monthly token burn. The capital expenditure required for autonomous agents is forcing a structural retreat across the private sector.
To conclude our analysis, these are the undeniable market realities for Q3 2026. First, traditional software-as-a-service billing models are fundamentally colliding with physical energy limits. Second, power generation and physical hardware ownership, as we saw with SpaceX, now constitute the primary strategic moat. They are dictating market valuations far more than software architecture. And third, with the signing of NSPM 11, we're seeing the definitive end of private sector autonomy when it comes to national defense. Sovereign requirements now explicitly override commercial terms of service.
That wraps up today's explainer of the market realities. Thank you for joining us for this broadcast of the Daily AI News Digest. A reminder to visit our sponsor at bestai.org for further resources. Looking ahead to next week, institutional eyes will be strictly focused on how the market prices that $75 billion SpaceX IPO, especially given the immense capital requirements we've outlined today. Does the market truly value physical hardware and power generation over pure software? We'll find out soon enough. Have a good day.